Hello and good evening and welcome to CAM. I'm so excited to share with you today my guest. He really needs no introduction. He's a very busy man in the city of Bremerton, county of Kitsap, and even Washington State. And I am just thankful that he decided to sit down and have a chat with us. In today's episode of the CAM podcast, we're going to be talking about the pastor, the president, and the peacemaker. And you're going to enjoy this session, you're going to enjoy this time, because not only is he all that, he's a man who really is down to earth, he likes to have fun, and he's a happy person, and we're going to talk about that in this interview. So I want you to welcome with me Dr. Frankie Coleman of Sinclair Missionary Baptist Church.
Thank you.
So, Dr. Coleman, thank you for being here. I was teasing you earlier, I said, you're so busy, you just can't call Dr. Coleman, and you got it. There's things that has to be set up. But he said I'll be there, and he's here. And thank you, sir, for being here. One of the things that I'd like to for you to share with us is kind of an introduction of where you came from, how you were born and raised, and what brought you to Washington State, Kitsap County.
Okay. First, let me begin by saying thank you, Pastor Triplett, for having me today. Really appreciate it, and enjoying the nice weather. That's always a good thing. And so, but now I'm glad to be here. Of course, my journey ended up in the state of Washington. I joined the United States Army in 1981. Was in the military, got out in 85. I come to Washington. I had a relative here, Pastor Floyd Robinson.
Okay.
You may know him, and he was here. He was in the Marine Corps here, and he stayed here.
Oh, okay.
And so when I was getting out of the military, he told me, he said, man, come up here, you might can get a job. I know how to weld.
Right.
And he said, man, there's a shipyard here. He said, so you probably can get a job. And so I come up here, with the intentions on hopefully be able to get a job in the shipyard. Never got an interview in the shipyard. But anyway, while I was here, I joined the Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church. Pastor Sam Michelle,
Right.
who we know passed away about a month or two ago.
Right.
And I joined Mount Zion, and Pastor Michelle gave me an application. Never forget, he gave me an application to Kitsap Transit, and told me to go down there and maybe I can get a job there. And I go down to apply to Kitsap Transit. Talked to a lady at Resource. She just liked me,
Right.
and just hired me right on the spot. But in the meantime, I was going to Olympic College,
Right.
and I was playing football at Olympic College. That's how I ended up, going to Olympic College. They gave me
They had a football
scholarship.
team?
Yeah, they did a football team.
Oh, wow.
That was in 86, 85.
Okay.
And so I was able to play football. They gave me a scholarship to go. I said, okay. And so I did that, and working at Kitsap Transit at the same time. And but I worked at Kitsap Transit for 32 years.
Wow.
I started there, as a driver,
Mm-hmm.
and I told him I need a full-time job. So
Right.
he said, go to the shop. I went to the shop, never left. And so I stayed there 32 years.
Right.
But in the meantime, working at Kitsap Transit, going to Mount Zion. In 1986, December 1986, I was called to the ministry in 86 at the Mount Zion Church. I preached my first sermon in 1986 at the Mount Zion Church.
Wow.
I'll never forget the title, Jeremiah, we need a change in Mount Zion. That was my
Right.
sermon title, man. And I started doing that in 86, and from there I was getting an opportunity to be able to preach, because I was 23 years old.
Right. Right.
And I was considered the young preacher, the young minister.
Right.
And so I did have a different opportunity to preach, teaching class and stuff like that. And so all this was new to me.
Right.
All this was, it's amazing how this came about, because when I came to Mount Zion, I grew up in church, man.
Right.
All my life, my grandmother, I was a drug baby. She drugged me everywhere. So they drugged me to church.
Right.
But so I grew up in church, but I went to church, but I wasn't saved.
Right.
Now that I know what it is
Right.
to be saved.
Right.
And so, but when I came to the Mount Zion Church, I really committed myself, to Christ, and just kind of growing from there. And I was for different opportunities and stuff like that. And so, by me being a young preacher, the Sinclair Church, which was around the corner from the Mount Zion Church,
Right.
the pastor used to call me over on the fourth Sunday to preach for the youth.
Right.
And so I said, okay. And so I would go around to the Sinclair Church, and the pastor introduced me to my wife,
Right.
Eileen, the piano player.
Oh, okay.
And so when he introduced me to Eileen,
You probably excited about that, right?
oh, right, great. And so, and after I think 86, Eileen and I got married. We have 2 kids.
Okay.
My daughter, Grace, she's down in Atlanta. She graduated from Spelman, and then she teaches school in Atlanta. My son, Junior, he lives in Tacoma. He went to TSU. He's doing real good. But we were here. I've been here, man, since '85.
Wow.
And I've seen a lot in '85. I've seen a lot within the city. 1985. But anyway, Lean and I was going to the Sinclair Church. We were still connected to the Mount Zion Church, and I felt a call. I felt a call of God to. There were many individuals that I felt or seen that was untouched.
Right.
And Lean and I started a Bible study, and that Bible study, we were doing that a little bit in our home, and then we had like 4 to 6 people.
Right.
Well, then Lean would say, well, Frank, you can't have all these people.
This is my house.
In my house. And so, and I read it, and we read it, and it wasn't the idea of just a church. We were just having a Bible study.
Right.
And that thing began to grow, and so I rented the West Side Improvement Club, and I rented the kitchen area.
Right.
I rented that kitchen area, and I was paying $40 a week in that thing. And it was just like a little area that holds maybe 30, maybe 35, 40 people.
Right.
And we were just, having service.
Yeah.
And then we decided we got to put something on paper.
Right.
And that's when we got established as Word of Life Fellowship Church. I met a lot of challenges with that.
Right.
I wasn't Baptist until I wasn't Baptist. And so, but the people that we had, they were more interested in becoming a Christian more than their denomination status.
Yeah.
And so, and I think that was one of the plus for me. And but I got a lot of slack from my Baptist brothers,
Right.
because I wasn't Baptist. I wasn't able to connect with the Ebenezer District Association.
Right.
They didn't allow me to, because I wasn't
How did that
Baptist.
make you feel though, as a pastor? Because we're talking about that. Was there some kind of feeling like,
Well, yeah, it was, because you got to remember, all of these churches that were put up in Ebenezer District, all these were churches that I would go preach in.
oh wow,
These
people
are
that
not,
knew you.
Yeah, these are people that knew me. These are people that, I fellowship with.
Right.
But because my church was not a Baptist church,
Right.
they kind of looked down on that. But anyway, and so they gave me the challenge. They told me that, well, if you change your name to a Word Life Baptist Church,
Right.
You're more than welcome to do that. And I said, well, that's not what God told me. And so I didn't,
Right.
and I didn't change the name of that. And so I stayed with that church, and that church grew. That church grew from that time. And so, but long story short, I ended up making a complete circle. Lean and I, we pastored that church 15 years.
Right.
And we made a complete circle right back to Sinclair. And I ended up being the pastor of Sinclair.
Wow.
And that same Ebenezer District Association that didn't want me as a as a non-denominational church.
Right.
I'm the moderator of that district now. and I say all that to say,
Wow.
I believe if you stay with God and you do what God says, and you know without a shadow of a doubt, this is what God wants you to do.
Right.
See, it don't matter what everybody else thinks.
Wow.
Because there's only one voice that matters. It's His.
Come on.
And when you do that, I believe God honors your faithfulness.
Wow.
When you be good to God, God will be good to you.
Wow.
And so that's been always my motto. Of course, there's a lot of things that goes on, the different ministries that I was Sinclair Church that we just kind of, when I ended up at Sinclair, I brought that Word of Life Fellowship Church. I told them one day that I believe God wanted me to be at Sinclair.
Right.
And all of them stood up and said, Pastor, wherever you go,
Wow.
we go.
Wow.
And so that's how Word of Life
merged together
with Sinclair.
Wow.
And so it's like putting two families together.
Yeah.
You would have some challenges,
right.
but putting two families together. And we've been doing that, putting those two families together for like 18 years.
Wow.
And a lot of the ministries that we had at Word of Life, we continue those ministries at Sinclair Church. We have a mission to Haiti. We have a mission to Haiti that we support on a monthly basis. I've taken a mission team over to Haiti. I think the last group we had taken, I took nine ladies from Sinclair to Haiti. We continue to do prison fellowship. Pastor Coleman been preaching every month for the last 32 years at the Women Correction Center in Purdy.
Wow.
Continue to do that. So we had a feeding the homeless ministry. I think when COVID came, they kind of humbled us from that.
Right.
I wasn't able to do that. But what we do, we continue to partner now with David Stewart, the ministry here that feed the homeless here. So that's things that even though you can't do things on a bigger level that like you would like to, you can always partner with somebody.
Right.
Who's already doing the work.
Right. That's important.
Pastor Coleman don't believe in reinventing the wheel.
Right.
If the wheel's rolling, you keep it rolling.
Yeah, I have to figure out. I want to ask you another question too, because one of the things that pastoring, it's not easy, and I know, and I don't certainly preach to the choir when I say this to you. I notice there's something about you. You seem to have this unspeakable joy and just authentic happiness. How do you maintain that because I listened to you preach or teach one time, and you were talking about when you're pastoring, there's all kind of things and departments that you're responsible for, all kind of people that report to you. But I still notice there's this authentic joy and happiness that you seem to have. Is that real? And how do you
say what you see is what you get. I don't know other way but to be happy. And we sing it, we say it, we even preach it.
Right.
This joy I have, the world didn't give it and the world can't take it away.
Right.
Well, Doc, this just not something I say. This is what I believe, and this is what I live every day.
Right.
I think my joy does come from God, not only my relationship with Christ, but I love people. I love people, and I think because Jesus Christ died for people, you got to love people. You got people that say they love Jesus but don't love his children. That don't make sense to me.
Right.
And so, I'm just excited about God allowing me. Think about that.
Yeah.
He allowing me, coming from the South, coming from Louisiana. Man, I got friends of mine. Me and my wife just went to Louisiana, but I think 2-3 weeks ago. They still amazed. They say, Frank, is that you?
Actually, I saw a guy who he commented on the flyer. He said, "Oh yeah, that's my best friend. He's from Louisiana." But yeah, I just noticed that because sometimes, growing up in church, I grew up where, sometimes if you smile, they thought maybe something was wrong with you. But I like that attribute in you that you genuinely seem to be happy about what you're doing. Sometimes I get a glimpse of your Sunday morning and you be doing an announcement and you be smiling back. I was like, what kind of, this man he's a happy guy. And I think that's a missing feature that sometimes ministers and pastors have, where you think you got to put on this face of holiness and not smile and not people know that, look, no, I'm a happy person. The other question I wanted to ask you, because we read a lot, and as a pastor, I was reading this Pew Research. It talked about a lot of pastors, they're giving up, they're walking out of their pulpits, they're stressed out, depressed, because they just can't handle and they don't feel like they have anybody to talk to. How do you manage that? And does any of those things kind of trigger you?
Yeah. Well, I always encourage pastors. I don't care who you are. Everybody needs somebody to talk to. no matter how long you've been preaching, no matter how long you've been saved. And I shared this, matter of fact, I shared this the other night, is that, and matter of fact, I preached this on Sunday. David got caught up with Bathsheba. David got caught up when everybody else was out to war. David was, still at the palace. And I think even when those times come, when those challenging times, all of us need somebody to connect with, with the pastors, especially pastors. Man, I think since COVID, you've seen a large number of pastors commit suicide because of stress, anxiety, worry, worry how they're gonna pay the bill, how they're gonna meet the mortgage.
Right.
Man, those things are real.
Yeah.
I don't care who you are. I think, having someone to communicate with, to have confidence in. Find your man that love God and that have a heart for God and have a heart for God's people and be able to connect and share and pray with him. And Pastor Robinson was that for me, Pastor Floyd Robinson, my cousin.
Right.
And I hated to see him leave, man, when he left. But he just a phone call away.
Right.
And I think everybody needs somebody to just, man, let me bounce this off for you, man. Right. What do you think of this?
Right.
Be real. Somebody gonna be real with you. Somebody not gonna just kiss up to you. You know what I mean?
Right.
But be real with you and be honest with you. And that's rare, man.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's rare. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
And but when you find that individual and connect with them, I think it'd be a great resource to you.
As a pastor, have you ever? Because there again, listen to YouTube and read there were those who candid about they told God, I'm done with this. I quit. Like Elijah said, I'm the only one. And I heard you talk about that.
Yeah.
Have you ever had those feelings that I'm done with this? I want to quit.
No, I never had a place where I wanted to quit. Now, I can say that honestly, never. There will be times in life, especially ministry, you're going to have those down till you be like, man, you're just, tired. And sometimes when those moments come, you got to take time for you. I remember, I think it was several years ago. I remember one Sunday morning, I told my wife, man, I said, I can't, man, I'm burnt out. Man, I barely get out of bed.
Right.
And my wife said, what? I said, I'm telling you, I'm just burnt out. I was just burnt out. And I called another preacher. I said, hey man, I need you to preach today because I'm just wore out, man. Right. My body, your body was actually shut down on you. So when you know that, take time, man, to get away from everything. Right. Whether it's you and your wife or just you alone. You got to have those times where you take those times away. Just get away from everything. Sometimes you got to get away from the thing you love to appreciate what you love, man. Right. Wow. And I think and your body would know, your body would tell you that. And so I'm learning that more and more as I get older, man.
Yeah.
I'm not 23 no more. I can't. I used to do that. When I was 23, man, I used to sometimes preach 3-4 times a day on Sunday.
Yeah.
And but I can't do that, man. I can't do that no more.
Right. And all the different services throughout the week that you have.
That's right.
Let me ask you this, because we know in Christendom, in the body of Christ, there are those who have failed for whatever reason. What's been your secret to being able to stand in who you are and who God has called you, that you haven't failed? Because we know the enemy; he's always at roaring
Absolutely.
lion. So what's been your secret to, as a pastor and pastoring people, that you've been able to just stand?
I think accountability. See, a pastor who don't have no accountability, he leaves himself wide open. Wide open. I mean, wide open. There has to be somebody to hold you accountable. Right? All of us need to be held accountable. No matter who you are, no matter how long you've been here.
Right.
Pastor Coleman is not beyond being accountable. Because I gotta remember, if nobody else sees what I'm doing, there's one who does see what I'm doing.
Wow.
And that to me means more than anything. And I don't want to fail him.
Right.
I mean, and all of us are subject to, the sin, we, falling short.
Right.
And that's why we gotta be willing and ready. Brother Fall, you with your spirit, you restore such a one in the spirit of meekness, considering yourself, lest you also fall. And so to be able to help another guy up, okay, man, dust yourself up, and let's go get this thing together.
How important is that? Because I watched Bishop Jakes once, and there was a pastor who had failed, and he came and he embraced him like he didn't know anything about what had happened to him. How important is that? And are we doing a good job at that as shepherds and overseers of the flock that God has given us?
I think that's very important, but I think at the same time, I said this too. Sometimes you got to be very careful who you connect with. You don't just connect with everybody.
Right.
You got to know who you're connecting with. Okay, the person fell. Did he fall because of he didn't care, or because he just something he wanted to do?
Right.
Have you really shown godly sorrow? See? Does he really want help?
Right. So you got to ask the question.
Yeah, absolutely. You do have to ask questions. You hear me say all the time, you don't, Pastor Coleman don't connect with everybody.
Right.
I think that's important, and I think, you can reach out, trying to help and give support, but you don't just connect with everybody, because here again, now you're talking about your character can be in question.
Right.
Sometimes you gotta abstain from the very appearance sometimes. Some people you can, Big Mama used to say, you can feed them with a long-handled spoon. You can still feed them.
Right.
But the spoon gotta be long.
Right.
And and so you can do it that way.
Right.
But I think accountability.
Okay. We all have people that have mentored us, trained us. Obviously, for me, Bishop Robertson. Who are some people that have mentored you along the way? That you really admire? And you already mentioned Pastor Rochelle. I imagine he's one of them. But who are some of the other people that you look to as far as mentorship?
Man, let me tell you something. I learned from everybody, right? I mentioned Pastor Rochelle because that was the one who was, who led me to pretty much to Christ.
Right.
Pastor Rochelle was teaching basic, Christianity, how to get saved. Now that you're saved, how to walk, how to live saved. That's what Pastor Rochelle was teaching me. Of course, so I grew into that. He was preaching just truth.
Right.
Just basic truth. Basic foundation.
Right.
Not none of this shaky foundation stuff. He was teaching basic stuff that had helped me to have a stable foundation.
Wow.
Know what you believe, why you believe, what you believe. And see, a lot of Christians, they don't all know that.
Right. True.
They fall in love with the idea, or with the pastor, or they fall in love with the church, or fall in love with Jesus, brother. You know what I mean?
Say that again, sir.
So, and I think I said to Pastor Rochelle, of course, he's going home to be with the Lord now, and Pastor Rochelle was one of the greatest mentors to me. I think one of the best person that made the greatest impact in my life was my grandmother.
Wow.
She not only say she was saved, she lived saved. So that's a good model for me.
Right.
That was a good model for me. And there have been others, I grew up around here pretty much. Bishop Robinson, Bishop, man, you talk about a lot of things.
Right.
A lot of these pastors I meet with all the time, Big Mama used to say, baby, you can learn from a fool. if it's no more than you don't want to act like a fool, you can learn from that. Well, and that's what we do. We learn from people every day.
Exactly.
We learn some, what we want to, some good things, of course. And but I would say Pastor Rochelle, Pastor Taylor. Matter of fact, he was at the St. Clair Church way before me. A lot of different pastors in our district.
Right.
If I needed help, I just pick up the phone, call, and they was always there, and so many different pastors.
Yeah. A lot of times you made mention of your wife and when you met her. Sometimes in this occupation or vocation, or should I say this life, it's called, our spouses can feel like they're second to the call or second to the ministry. How do you balance that out?
Well, I would say, and I'm very grateful to have a musician with me. I travel with mine. I don't have to look for what I got one with me. And so, we pretty much, we in this thing together. We can talk about different things, and I think my wife have confidence in me. She know me, right?
Wow.
And I think,
good.
my wife not jealous,
Right.
She's not jealous, she's not intimidated, because she know me.
Wow.
I try to make her feel secure in that. Because I say what I mean, and I mean what I say.
Right.
And and trying to make her feel secure in that. And so, she know this is what God had called us to do, not just me, her too.
I like that.
She's in this thing just like me.
Right.
And I tell Sinclair, y'all blessed, y'all get 2 for 1. So,
right.
but no, she's secure in that.
Wow.
And I think that's what, that keeps us, connected. We pretty much doing it together, really.
Yeah.
And so, I think she found comfort in that.
A couple more questions as we deal with the passion part. What would you define as a mistake or a big mistake that you made in the course of the call that you've gotten from God and being in ministry? Have there been any mistakes that you've made? Obviously, number one, you learned from it, and number two, you were like, man, Lord.
I would say, what do the 61-year-old tell that 23-year-old back then? I would have to think about that, really. I would have to think about it, and because, man, I've had a good life, and I really thank God for the things that, some of the things that, Pastor Tripp, I've done things that I never thought I would be.
Wow.
I'm telling you, this is all this is mind blowing for me. This is mind blowing for me.
Wow.
Went to seminary, done all these things.
Right.
So this is mind blowing for me, coming from the South, man.
Yeah.
Coming from a place called Thibodeau, Doc. And so this is mind blowing. And so I guess I would have to think about that.
Okay, that's fine. So as you think about that question, what's been your biggest joy in ministry?
My biggest joy in ministry, to see, when the light comes on for people.
Oh, wow.
That one time, and I never forget, I teach noonday Bible study too, and I never forget, an old lady told me, she was in a noonday Bible study, she was like in her 70s. She told me, she said, Pastor Coleman, she said, and I pretty much was just teaching them their books of the Bible.
Right.
She said, Pastor Coleman, I'm 77 years old. She said, I've been in church all my life, and I'm just not learning what it means to be a Christian.
Ooh, wow.
To see the light come on for some people, that gives me joy. That makes me excited. Wow. I've seen people come into Bible class just intimidated and scared.
Yeah.
I watch them. We get the opportunity. Would you like to pray? So I just watch them, let them grow. And now, man, I've seen it. I've seen where they come in intimidated. And now I'm saying, okay, we want to lead us in prayer.
Wow.
Please jump up. I'll pray, Pastor.
Yeah.
see that light come on
Right.
for people where the scriptures become alive to them.
Yes.
To see that, man, and then when you begin to see a life actually change, they're no longer just going to church now. Right. It's about their relationship.
Yeah.
And to see that, man, that's big joy.
It is. One of the other questions I want to ask you is, what's your strategy for consistent Bible reading and prayer? And I know you got a strategy, because, like I said, whenever I watch you, you do that come on type thing. But what's your consistent strategy for your Bible time and your prayer?
I try to, for my Bible time, try to be consistent. I'm consistent with my daily devotional. You do this is every day, right? So for us, the teaching side of it, I try to make this so understanding where a child can grasp this. You know, I do expository preaching. I take 2 or 3 verses and I sit in on that, and I try to break this down. So I want them to be able to understand. Because when I understand, if I can understand, I know I can get them to understand. And so I try to keep that simple. I like doing, sometime I do preach through a whole book. Take the book of James, you know, preach chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5, and then, you know, focus on that and kind of explain that. And I think that for me now, I think that's, you know, consistency.
Right.
When people, I guarantee you get people who done been at Sinclair for any length of time, and they, you know, they done figured out my you know, my preaching point. They done figured it out. And so, if I ever go preaching, and I don't have 3 points, they say, Pastor, we forgot point.
You set that expectation for them.
Yeah. See, because what it is, and I give them an outline. I give them a preaching outline every week. I give them an outline and say, okay, you can follow along when I'm preaching. You follow along, and I leave a blank that they have to fill in.
Right.
So that means you got to pay attention. And so, so I try to be consistent with that.
Right.
And I think that's an easy way of learning for them.
Okay. Are you a hooper or a teacher? And does it matter? And is there seasons for that?
Right. I like it all. It all depends on the city.
Right.
It all depends on the city. If I'm preaching it all depends on where I'm preaching at.
Right.
If I'm preaching in Haiti, you got an interpreter.
Right.
So you better be slow. You better be slow. You know what I mean?
So all this holiday.
That ain't gonna work in Haiti. When I'm preaching at the women's prison in Purdy, you got to do a lot of explaining.
Right.
Oh, they like it. They like it to shut it down, Doc, even in the prison. But it all depends.
Right.
You see, I love celebration. You know, I love the celebration, but at the same time, you want to make sure that you do some teaching. And so, yeah, I like it all, Doc.
Right.
I like it all.
Last question on the pastor part, and then we're gonna move into Bama. Would you do it all again? And I know I'm saying that, but I know what the answer is. But would you do all this all over again?
Oh yes, sir. Yes, sir. Oh yes, sir. Yes, sir. Without question. Yeah. That's when I came to Christ, I'm all in.
Right.
And would I do it again? Yes, I would.
Yeah. I believe it. Do you foresee a passing of the baton in the future to someone, or you see yourself just going into the Lord and say, okay, Frankie?
I know that, of course, and I've seen many pastors, you know, do this for years.
Right.
But I think you have to know when it's your time. And I think God will, you know, I think God shows us that. You know, individuals I've seen over the years, whenever God said, this is my time, I think, you know, Paul told Timothy this. He said, look, you got to know when to pass this thing on. Pass this thing on to somebody else. You just can't do this until you can't stand up no more.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you got to know when to pass this on.
Yeah.
He said, entrust this to others. You know, you got to guard it, but also entrust it to others.
Right.
And I think you got to know when it's time. So whenever, you know, right now I'm just enjoying the ride.
Right. Oh, I can tell you.
I'm just enjoying the ride. But when it's time,
Right.
you know, when it's time, when I believe that God says time, that's not no thing for me to, and not no hard pill for me to swallow, saying, okay, man, I got to pass this thing on to somebody else who can run, you know, I done ran my race, let me pass this on to somebody else to keep running.
Right.
You know, this thing is not built around me, so I got to be able to, this is about the kingdom.
Yes.
Being able to pass this on.
I like that. I like that. So we're going to move into the balance section because you're the president of Bama, and you can kind of explain to our listeners what that is. But can you just give us a little of a vision of what Bama is and the goal of BAMA?
Okay. Well, BAMA, which is Birmingham African American Ministers Alliance, BAMA was formed in early 2000s, early 2000s. There were several churches in our area. We didn't have an association with just a predominantly black church, the black pastors that lead churches. We were a part of, I think it was a KITSAP Ministers Alliance, and we would go to their meetings, but they would address their issues.
Right.
But that wasn't our issues. We would, be in support of a lot of the ministers there. They had things that they were dealing with or things that they wanted to do.
Right.
But that didn't really feel like that wasn't what for
Right.
the black community. And so we had to so we came together, pastors that lead black congregations pretty much, and we formed the Birmingham African American Ministers Alliance, BAMA. Right. And then our goal was to stay connected for fellowship. Our goal was to be together because we felt we could do more together. I know we led different churches, right? But I think any resources or anything that we had, we was able to communicate. We was concerned about our children, so we had scholarships. We were concerned about making sure people were voting, so we had voting rallies. Just some of the needs that was going on in our community. Right. And so we formed this group of pastors. At that time, I think it was 10 churches, 10 local churches here, different black pastors who led black congregations. So we met on a regular basis, once a month. We have been doing it, and it's been early 2000. I was trying to pinpoint the exact date, right? But I know it was like, I want to say 2003, 4, something like that, or earlier. But those are the earliest data that I can come up with. But so far, right now, the goal is to stay connected. I think COVID kind of, it's put a brake on everything. Yeah. But recently, we had just started to really try to come back together in person. Normally around different events, whether it's like Easter, right, Christmas, Thanksgiving, different. We want to stay connected. Right. We try to support each other. Different churches within our community, don't matter your denominational. We were still trying to stay connected that way. Whatever information that we can pass on to the churches, that's what we were about. Staying connected, looking out for some of the things that will benefit people in the black community. And that was to go with BAMA. Going forward, just really trying to keep us connected right now. Trying to pick back up where we left off, right, things that we can do together. Just kind of with, be supportive within our community. BAMA is not connected to everything in the community. Right. Right. I think sometimes people have a hard time understanding.
Is that intentional?
Well, because there's so many things out in the community now.
Right. Right.
And so, because you got different pastors within, and so we're not asking BAMA, we're not asking pastors to take a side over here, right, with this group or that group. That's each individual pastor. That's their
right,
thing.
Right.
But BAMA, we don't want to lose focus on what we come together, guys. Right. And what I found out is sometimes you got people in the community want to identify or want to describe what BAMA should be doing. Right. No, you don't tell BAMA what to do. BAMA going to do what it should be doing. Right. You do what you got to do. Right. And so, and I think
the president talking now.
Yeah, it's the president talking about. And so, we want to stay focused. Yeah. On some of the things that we should be doing. Right. But we're really willing and able to support different positive things within our community, man. That's what BAMA does.
Awesome. Sounds good. So we're going to begin to close out. This has been so good. I could go another 40 minutes, but we want to hit the peacemaker part because the scripture talks about blessed are the peacemakers. And that's kind of how I see you. So can you talk about that characteristic of the importance of being a peacemaker as a pastor? Because, you know, when I think of peacemaker, I think of conflict, and conflict isn't bad, but the peacemaker has to come in there and not take sides, but figure out how to act. So can you talk a little bit about that characteristic?
One of the things that I think, Pastor Chip, and I think I alluded to it earlier, Pastor Coleman loves everybody. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what color you are, doesn't matter if you're saved or not saved. One of the things, and I say this all the time, Pastor Coleman don't even think he's a good preacher. But one thing Pastor Coleman do realize, know this, that when people interact with him, they know what you see is what you get. They know he gonna be real with you. He ain't gonna try, he just not saying what he's saying.
Right.
And I think that's important. I think that's important. And I think people would rather deal with somebody that's real.
Yes.
And deal with somebody that they this way today, but tomorrow you don't know who they're gonna be.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I don't have no sides. If I can help you, I'll help you.
Yeah.
If I can't, I'll let you know that.
Right.
And so I think so far for me, I think that's why for me I like people, and people are drawn to that. I really, and I tell people that, there are people who can do this better than me.
Right.
You know what I mean? But here's what I can do.
Right.
If that works for you, fine.
Yeah.
But I think that's where I'm at now. When it comes to Peacemaker, and I like to see peace and harmony, man.
I noticed that about you.
I like to see peace, man. I don't like conflict.
Right.
They tell you, I don't like conflict. Man. And sometimes, I deal with conflict when I have to.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't like conflict.
Right.
Me and my wife been married over 36 years, 35 and a half. Matter of fact, the end of May 30 gonna be 36.
Oh, okay.
Man, we don't argue nothing like that. We don't.
Wow.
We don't. There's no raising no voice in the house. No, we're not gonna do that. We don't do that.
Right.
I don't like conflict.
Yeah.
She doesn't either.
Wow.
So that's good. And so far as having peace, and I love peace, Doc. When I go to sleep at night, I sleep. You know what I mean? I like peace,
Right.
man.
No, I heard you. I believe it.
And I hate to see, even sometimes in the body, in the body of Christ, when I see conflict. Okay,
Yeah.
what can I do to help that thing?
Right.
Okay, what can? Okay, well, we all Christians. Okay,
Yeah.
we got to have something that we agree on. We're not gonna agree on everything.
Yeah.
But there got to be something that now that we're Christian, what can we agree on?
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm at. So far as a peacemaker, I try to help in the body.
Yeah.
That's what I try to do.
Well, we want to thank you all for tuning in and tapping in to this podcast with Dr. Frankie Coleman. He spoke as a pastor, he spoke as the president of Bama, and he talked about how he likes peace. So appreciate everybody for tuning in and tapping in, and hopefully you got a little bit of something out of this to help your walk with the Lord. So God bless you.
Bless you.
God keep you.
Blessings to you.